What's going on, my soul family? Welcome back to another episode of the Awake with Jake show. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with y'all about how I overcame my fear of commitment, which led me to becoming a husband and father, which has completely transformed my life for the better in so many ways. If you knew me before I got into this type of work about 10 years ago, I was a complete mess. I was drinking all the time, getting blackout drunk, getting dragged out of bar rooms by bouncers, getting into fights, looking for validation through women, and just really being so unconscious of how I was living my life that it led me to finding myself because I had realized that I had stored so much pain in my body, in my subconscious mind from my childhood and all the trauma I went through early on in life from the relationship I had with my father, who I've been able to heal actually, and the abuse I went through with him, the anger, the violence, the rage I dealt with him, and then my sister being a heroin addict. So the different levels of pain that I experienced from family trauma and then my own internal stuff, my food addiction, my porn addiction, my addiction to alcohol, my anger and rage that I had just flooding my veins, completely transformed as I stepped into who I am today, which, by the way, is a super scary journey. And I was having a conversation with my training partner today, and we were talking about how nothing changes in your life when you're unwilling to become uncomfortable. Like every time I ever changed and transformed in my life was I worked through some level of discomfort that I never thought I could possibly do. And I gave a couple of references. One was I left a job that most people never leave, which is a very comfortable job working at this utility company, making great money, had great benefits, health benefits, 401k, the whole bullshit they sell you on in the corporate world. And I left that job because I was unfulfilled. I was becoming a lineman for working on high voltage wires. And I was like set up to be good for the rest of my life, quote unquote good, right? But that was conditioned in me to be an employee and work for somebody else and build their dreams while being miserable myself. And I'm not saying you can't be happy as an employee, but if you're unhappy as an employee, that's where the problems start to pile up and stack up in your life. Another example was when I left a previous relationship where I was pretty serious with this girl and I went through a breakup and I was living in Texas at the time. And I just remember feeling in my gut like this is not right. I can't be in this relationship. It's not for me. It's not right. And I kept feeling that feeling. I kept feeling so much anxiety around it. And I just remember finally realizing like I can't be in this relationship anymore. And I had to exit that relationship. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But once again, those examples of being uncomfortable, if I had stayed in that job, if I had stayed in that relationship, I would never have grown to the man I am today. Okay. And I'm not saying I'm some fucking amazing man. I think of myself just an average, simple country boy that's out here in the back hayfield, posting podcasts and content online that sometimes helps people have realizations about shit. But I'm really just sharing my experience, man. Like that's what it all comes down to. And in my life, what I have learned is that the more you avoid discomfort, the more you actually honor pain, if that makes sense. Let me clarify this. The more you avoid your discomfort, the more you fuel pain and suffering in your life because it's actually the discomfort that you're avoiding, that breakup, leaving that shit job, telling that boss to fuck off, telling, your ex-partner who keeps coming around and you keep acknowledging and kind of going back and forth with that, telling them to fuck off, right? Like it's really about honoring the things in your life that you need to deal with, but you're not dealing with because of the fear. And that fear all circles back around your lack of commitment to yourself. And this entire podcast today, by the way, is built around me overcoming my fear of commitment, which one of the biggest fears of commitment that I ever had was being in a committed relationship. So you see, I watched my dad at a very young age date multiple women at the same time. And like, that's kind of like what he taught me in my mind was, you got to have as many women as possible and all these different things, these ideologies. So he programmed that into my subconscious mind. And in our society, men are prized based on how many women they sleep with, how many notches they get in their belt. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not internally happy as a man, no amount of validation from women will ever make you feel good. Okay? No amount of money will ever make you feel good if you feel like a weak man inside and insecure. When you really sit with your thoughts and you take away all your money, all your status, all your whatever, all the women you have in your life, it's all bullshit. And it's just really just blanketing your insecurities as a man. And I had to go through this internal pain and process myself. And it was a very lonely, cold, dark journey because I spent years healing this. And when I went through a previous breakup and I moved to California and I moved into the mountains of California, I would spend every single day literally going out into the mountains by myself, spending time in complete isolation, all by myself, and just processing my thoughts and my emotions. You see, growing up where I grew up, we never talked about feelings. We never talked about emotions. We never talked about pain, right? It was like, if I cried, Dad would say, I'm going to give you a reason to keep crying. And he would be very serious about it. And if I didn't stop crying, I was going to probably get my ass beat, which I think a lot of men, a lot of women can relate to. But I didn't know what true commitment was because I grew up in a household of two parents that didn't love each other. My father and mother did not love each other. They should have probably never been together in the first place, but they had 3 children as a result, and they tried to make the relationship work. And they tried hard. They tried damn hard to make the relationship work, but it was a constant battle. It was a constant power struggle. It was constant fighting and screaming and arguing and blowout fights every single day. That's the type of environment I grew up in. It was a very chaotic environment, which I'm sure that you can relate to if you grew up in that type of environment. So it made me very non-committal because I thought to myself, well, if mom and dad couldn't make it work, how am I ever going to make it work with a woman? I'm just going to be single for the rest of my life. And the thought of marriage scared the shit out of me. And I think it scares the shit out of a lot of men because they think that, well, I'm giving up my freedom. And you hear all these negative connotations about marriage and the old ball and chain and happy wife, happy life type bullshit, right? And you know what I'm talking about. We hear so much negativity around this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say there's not negativity around marriage and divorces and everything else because there is. But what a lot of that comes down to is 2 reasons why people get into an unhappy relationship and ends up an unhappy marriage, which leads to an unhappy divorce, right? Number 1, that marriage, if it's unhappy and miserable, is a result of the inner work that you haven't done. As a man or woman, it's the result of the inner work that you have not done, okay? Number 2, it's a result of choosing the wrong partner, choosing the wrong person that you've chose to be with. But you guys maybe started to quote unquote awaken and you realize, hey, this ain't really the right relationship for me. We've grown apart. We don't have the same belief systems. We have different views on how the world works. And we start to clash. Now, those are 2 very, very core reasons why a lot of relationships don't work out in our world. My fear of commitment as a man came from my upbringing and how I was raised to basically not be committed to myself. Because as a man, when you're not committed to yourself, you end up being just a playboy in society, right? Like you just fly around like Peter Pan, flying from one woman to the next. And that's how you live your life. And if that's how you want to live your life and you're content doing that, good for you. But if you really want to build a strong family unit with a good woman who respects you and honors you, it is going to take you being a committed man, committed to her, committed to yourself, committed to your family. Because if you can't commit to that, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to commit to anything fully. You'll have different business ideas. You'll start a business. You'll stop the business. You'll go to the gym for 2 months, get all pumped up about it. You'll stop going to the gym. If you are this type of person that you cannot make a commitment to yourself, you break commitments all the time. You break those little promises. This is because deep down inside your subconscious mind, you don't feel worthy of being committed to. That means another person committing themselves to you as well, fully and truly. And if you have that belief, like I believed that, I was afraid of commitment because I was afraid of giving up my freedom, right? Quote unquote freedom, which actually allowed me to have more freedom than I've ever felt in my life. The amount of peace that I feel being in a relationship with a good woman, it changes you internally. That's truly like one of the secrets of the universe to developing your masculinity as a man and really your femininity as a woman, is to be in a relationship with a strong, loving, good woman who will love you and support you through your darkest battles. And the same thing for women, to be in a relationship with a man who has strong leadership, good boundaries, clear direction. This will make your femininity blossom like unlike anything you've ever felt in your life. But my fear of commitment, I'm going to speak back to the men again. My fear of commitment, I was so afraid of this that when I met Melissa, she was so loving and patient, but she also wasn't going to tolerate me just dragging her along. She had a standard and she had boundaries. And that was presented to me in a way that was very loving. It was not demanding. It was not controlling. It was not critical. It was just, this is what I really desire. And I desire that with you. Are you able to give me that? If not, that's okay, but we can't be together. I love you. I want to be with you. Now, this was presented maybe a year and a half to 2 years into our relationship. Now, I had to sit with that and I had to think, and I think every man should do that. You got to think, is this the woman that you really want to be with? And you should choose wisely. You should never, ever choose a woman based on impulse. I got a message today from a woman that she said, well, I'm questioning if this is the right relationship. The guy bought the ring 5 months into the relationship. I go, what the fuck? 5 months into the relationship, you bought a ring. I'm assuming a ring to be married. Probably wasn't just a friendship ring. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, you're so impulsive. You don't even know this woman after 5 months and you're ready to get down and get married and commit and probably have kids and build a family. This is where people go wrong because they didn't do the inner work. They're impulsive. They get into a relationship with somebody they don't really want to be with. Then guess what? They make a stupid commitment. And then 10 years later, they're still in the same relationship because there's so much shame around leaving a marriage or relationship that just doesn't work. And you got to be honest with yourself. If you're in a relationship like that right now, it's just not working. You've done everything you possibly can to fix it. That's where you really got to be honest with yourself. Is this the right relationship for me? Am I holding on to what I hope to be one day a great relationship? Or am I just loving the potential of this person? And that's really what it comes down to. So back to the whole fear of commitment, how I overcame that. It was an internal process to heal my childhood stuff. All of the things I felt, the fear of abandonment, the feeling of neglect, all of these things that were stored in my subconscious mind, I had to purge and release out of my system, which then allowed me to leave the relationship that wasn't meant for me, which then allowed me to enter the relationship that at the time I didn't know was the right relationship for me, right? See how this process is working, unfolding here? And then I was challenged to step all the way in by a good, loving woman who was clear with what she wanted, because I wasn't clear at the time. She wasn't going to accept me being a Peter Pan. And any good woman with any standards in her life, she's not going to play games like that. And if you meet a good woman like that, and she's desiring commitment, and she's clear about that, and she's really said, like, basically, I want to be claimed by you, and you're just dragging her along, giving her excuses, oh, well, when I make more money, then we can get married, honey, 5 years from now. It's like, listen, a good woman is not going to just stick around while you take years to figure your shit out. You should take time to figure things out. And a woman should allow you time to figure things out, because if you impulsively like, yes, I want to marry you right now, that to me is like a big ass red flag, right? I think every man has an internal journey to go within to heal the pain he's held on to, and probably the pain that he's not even acknowledged, right? Like him having a really critical mother who was always hovering over him having a really passive father who taught him to be submissive to women. All these dark aspects that were instilled in him that make him condescending, egotistical, nice guy bullshit, beta behavior. You know what I'm talking about. Those sarcastic traits that you have to shield yourself. All of these little things that you do, these micro little things that you do, are all defense mechanisms to protect yourself because you don't feel safe and trust yourself. Because if you did trust yourself, guess what? You'd be in the career or business that you wanted to be in. You'd have your own successful business. You'd have a successful relationship. You'd be physically healthy. This is the core wound of our society right now. People aren't committed to themselves because they don't feel worthy of success. They don't feel worthy of love. They don't feel worthy of freedom. That's really what it comes down to, is ever since you were a little kid, your freedom, little by little, has been stripped away from you by the school system, by society, unknowingly by your parents, by your peers, by your teachers, by your boss. Little by little, by the government, your freedom has been slowly stripped and robbed away from you. Now, this isn't to victimize you. You have to take control of your own reality. And when you start to do that, and you start being committed to your damn self, you will start making better choices in your life. And if you're in a relationship right now, or you want to be in a committed relationship, you will allow yourself to commit when it's the right time. And I don't think you should ever rush those decisions. I think those decisions need to be very thought out, not too thought out. Don't overthink this shit. I think they should be processed and thought out. But I think one of the biggest things happening in our society right now is men are so non-committal. They can't even make plans to go to dinner. How are you going to expect to build a family with that type of man? You know what's one of the most attractive things to a woman too, for men that are listening to this, and I know women are going to go jump up and down, say it louder for everyone in the back, because that's what I always say in my comments until I call them out. That's a whole other conversation. It's really funny because a woman loves a committed man. Why do you think women find fathers really attractive? Like a man holding a baby who's just present and strong and grounded. That's super attractive to a lot of women because they know he's a committed man. A committed father is a very attractive man to women. A man who's committed to his purpose is very attractive to women. A man who's committed to his health is very attractive to women. But you know what is the most attractive? Is a man that will commit himself to a woman, to love her. Yeah, sure, he could, as a high value man, you're going to have other options, right? Like just like if she's a beautiful woman, she's going to have other options as well. But knowing that you are a strong masculine man and being committed and choosing her is what makes you even more attractive. Women want a man that is fully committed, all in, who chooses and claims them fully. That is the only way she will ever truly respect herself and respect you in that process. She will never fully respect a man who is kind of wishy-washy and wobbly. So if you are that flighty type guy right now, you can't ever expect to have the full juiciness and femininity and warmth of a good woman if you're a non-committal man. That is one of the most important pieces to it all. If you want to feel the full femininity of a woman, it requires you to be a committed man. For the men that are listening to this right now, I have a very special invitation for you, which I am doing a men's retreat May 16th through the 19th. This is a leadership training retreat. You will be brought into the depths of your heart and soul to become the man that you damn well know you should be right now, and stop being passive, stop being indecisive. You are going to step in your masculine frame like never before. You'll be surrounded by other strong men in the mountains of the Adirondacks, and you're going to be going deep, to be called out, to be held accountable, to truly grow as a man. So if you want to be a part of this, go to elitemasculineretreat.com. And for the women that are listening to this, the single women, if you want to learn how to attract a healthy masculine husband, my wife and I just put out a brand new course called How to Attract a Healthy Masculine Husband. Go to masculinehusband.com. Once again, that is masculinehusband.com. The links will be in the show notes below. If this video brought you value, if this episode brought you value, please take a moment, share it to your Instagram story, tag me @_Jake Woodard, send me a DM. It would mean the world to me. Once again, if you share it, tag me, send me a DM. I appreciate you so much for being here. I love you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.